Welcome to this Workflow Wednesday training. I am your host here in our community, Jamie Gruol, and I am the co-founder of Workflows for Tax Pros, where we help small practices, tax and accounting practices, implement automated workflows. Because with automated workflows, you're going to build massive efficiency. If we haven't had the chance to meet yet, I'm Jamie Gruol, and after helping over 500 tax and accounting practices implement automation with TaxDome, I can confidently say that automation is the only way to increase your profit and time freedom in your practice. And today's training is about how you can scale your small practice without hiring a team this year. And I want to show you why this matters, how this matters, and make sure that you understand the benefits of taking the leap into automation in your operations, because I think there's a lot of people out there that aren't quite sure what automation means. And so today I want to break that down for you and bring it to you through the lens of increased capacity without hiring, because that's a big one, right? We all know hiring is a challenge these days. And if we can make sure that we're serving our clients really well, making sure that we're delivering on a quality product that is complete and as accurate as possible, of course, depending on the information we're getting from our clients, but complete and accurate, and also providing for increased revenues without having to hire, I think that sounds like a pretty sweet package. So if you are a small practice owner, you definitely going to want to listen up, because we have done this with over 800 practices in Workflows for Tax Pros. And so we know a thing or two about small practice operations. And that's really the reason that people come to work with us, is that we know as a small practice, you have many unique needs, because having a tool like TaxDome or any other practice management tool is amazing. But unless you know how to take that tool and use it for your benefit, you're missing out on a whole lot of efficiency, a whole lot of revenue, and a whole lot more capacity. And that means not having to work as much, even for a lot of people. We have a lot of our clients, so I have a couple kind of at the tip of my tongue that I'm thinking about right now, that you can actually see a whole bunch of them that are on our program page at workflowsfortaxpros.com/program and hear their stories. But a couple of them that come to mind are, number one, our client Edwin. So Edwin came to us a couple of years ago, and he was doing it all. He was manually, in kind of a more clunky way of gathering his clients' detailed documents through a portal that was not TaxDome. He was finding that his clients were not liking it. He was meeting with his clients in person to gather the information about their returns. He was offering all kinds of services, which is great, but he was having a hard time growing his business because he was really maxed out on the amount of hours he could work. He and his wife were running the practice. I think they had about 800 clients, and they were just maxed. They couldn't do anymore. And so they came to us after purchasing TaxDome, and we were able to give them our methods of using TaxDome in a small practice that allowed Edwin to actually increase his revenue by 30% that first year. And what that did is he was able to bring in more clients because he was working more efficiently. And so for them, as a young couple who were, I don't know how newly married they were, but they're a young couple, and they were looking to build the business to be able to expand their family. And I'm proud to share that just this last couple months, they've actually added to their family and welcomed their firstborn into the practice, and are now grooming them for filling his role when he's ready to retire. But no, in real honesty, it was because they implemented automations and they implemented methods of using the automation tools to their fullest capacity. A lot of people come to us and they haven't figured out how to take this amazing tool of TaxDome and make it work for them. So I would like to present to you the perspective of, let's look at TaxDome as your next hire. Let's look at TaxDome as your staff member that you can delegate work to. And we're going to talk through today several of the areas in which your practice can start delegating to TaxDome rather than having to go through the frustrating process of hiring somebody, training them, maybe having them hang around. But it's definitely a lot of effort and energy that gets poured into a new team member. And it's not cheap. It eats away at your profits, and it eats away at the scaling that can come from having a new team member. So let's talk about that today. All right. The first thing I want to talk about is why scaling is possible without hiring, because of automation. Now, the first thing I want you to think about is that fact that a tool like TaxDome is a new member. It is a team member for you. And this team member is able to automate the reminders to your clients that you sent them a document for signature. It's able to assign out a task to you or another team member saying, hey, this document has now been signed finally by that client, without somebody having to go in and be monitoring an inbox or be monitoring a separate tool. It's all done within the TaxDome system, and it allows us to have these Autobots that are going to hang out in the background for you to automate the reminders, automate the assignment out after it's been signed by all of the parties on an account. That is a huge time saver for a lot of people. You don't realize, if you were to really sit with that and be like, okay, in my process, when I'm actually like executing on a signature in today's world or in my current process, how much time am I spending? And I think that is probably a fair estimate that by time you gather the information you need to go to the other tool to send that out, then tracking on that, making sure that it's documented somewhere that you sent that out so that everyone's aware of that on your team. Then if you don't hear from them in a couple weeks, you go back through the list to follow up with them because the reminders aren't there. And if they do finish it, then who's monitoring an inbox to make sure that's happening? I would estimate that probably at 10 to 15 minutes per team or per client, broken up amongst maybe multiple team members. Maybe it's just you if you're a solo practitioner. But you need to think about this because 15 minutes a client for one document to get signatures on, times say 200 clients. Let me get my calculator out here because I'm not good at doing math today. So 15 times 200, that's 3,000 hours in a tax season, and you divide that by 60. That is 50 hours you are spending following up on your 8879s to get documents completed so that you can then e-file, right? And so what we can do with TaxDome is eliminate so much of that. We eliminate the manual reminders. We eliminate the tracking. We eliminate all of those components, and that gives us additional capacity. It's huge. So I wanted to talk about that. Excuse me, let me find my notes here. The next thing I want to talk about is what this does when you are able to free up your time. So I'm going to give you in just a moment a little walkthrough of what it does look like in TaxDome. But the thing that you can think about in particularly tax preparation, everybody's now kind of extensions are done. You're now preparing for 2025 and the tax season that comes with it. If you are not using a practice management tool like TaxDome, where you can automate the onboarding into your tax season, you are missing out and again, spending a huge number of hours, possibly sending out those organizers from your prep software, loading them into a folder to send an email to your clients to then remind them that tax season is starting, and then possibly getting an electronic signature on an engagement letter, but likely just waiting until after the return is complete and the engagement is technically done to issue the engagement letter, which I don't know, your insurance company may not be so happy about that, right? If they knew that's where it was happening. But a lot of people just don't have the capacity or the infrastructure, frankly, to be able to make sure that something like an engagement letter is completed before you actually begin preparing your return. So what I want to show you, I'm going to pull up my workflow here so we can look at it together, and I'll give you a sneak peek into what this looks like. But when we are able to have our clients be forced into a standardized process, be forced through automation to make sure that every time every client gets treated the same, that does a couple things. One, it frees up our brains to not be having to do the work, and it frees up our team to always know that they can trust when a client is in this point of our process. We can assume, unless somebody went rogue, that they have paid their deposit, they have signed the engagement letter, they have completed the return, or excuse me, the organizer. We should have all their documents based on their first attempt of delivering them to us, and our execution of the organizer in a way that interviews them, right? So we're making sure we get as much information from them so we can then move on to the preparing of the return. So let me go ahead and find my Zoom button here. I'm going to share my screen. So here we have a pipeline in TaxDome. And again, this is our signature pipeline that we have in Workflows for Tax Pros, where we give you everything you need, all the emails, all the organizers, all of the templates for proposals, all the templates for invoices, all of the step-by-step SOPs of how to use TaxDome to execute your 8879s. All of those details are baked into this signature pipeline that is part of our Workflows for Tax Pros program. But what this pipeline does is we've done the work for you, essentially. So in our work with 800 practices, we have established that 99.9% of the practices do things the same way. One, they onboard their clients into tax season. Now, that may be different for some people because, as we talked about, some people didn't have the infrastructure to make sure that they were getting their engagement letters completed, right? That they didn't have the ability to automatically send them out. But these first 5 steps here, step 1, 3, 4, and 5, 2 is for managing our paper-only clients. So those Mr. and Mrs. Jones who's been with us for 20 years, we want to make sure we're still able to help them, but we want to standardize our work. That's what those paper clients are. But the 1, 3, 4, and 5, this is the steps that every client will go through as they automatically onboard through our onboarding into tax season. So where you're having to manage that huge amount of work and you have team members that are managing the manual sending of those engagement letters, the manual sending of those organizers, maybe even sending out paper packets, which cost an arm and a leg because, let's say, postage is not getting cheaper, right? So what's happening here is that these first 3 or 4 stages, this is all client facing, and our clients love to celebrate that they add their jobs, add their clients into their pipeline, and they're like moving forward. They're like, it's like the horse races. I love watching it and seeing people like pop into the next stage. And some people are like, I'm getting paid in my sleep. This is amazing, because we can automate deposits, and we like to call them minimum fees. So we can improve the cash flow of the business and not be waiting and working for free for 4 months before we get those invoices paid at the end of the service. And so what we can do is we can lean into the automation, and this is TaxDome acting as your virtual assistant, right? This is TaxDome, your new team member who's moving your clients along the process. And once they have completed my organizer in this step number 5, they're going to then move into the stage ready to review. And I'm going to get notice through a task to a team member that it's time to go and review that document. So I want to show you what those look like. So here's a task template. So when we're building out TaxDome, there's a very specific way of doing this. One, you have to identify what your workflow is. So what is your process today? Then you have to identify what tools can I use within TaxDome to make this all happen. So for example, a task template to assign an internal to-do to a team member to go and take action at the appropriate time. So we're always being pinged at what is our most priority thing. We can create an actual task list for each of our team members and ourselves to know, what am I supposed to be working on right now? Because my client is now delivered their documents to me. I need to now review them. So we create these templates that have the built-in SOPs. So if you ever decide, I actually want to delegate this to a part-time admin that I'm going to bring in, all the details are here about what they need to do at the step, right? So this is where the power of efficiency comes in. So your team members aren't having to come to you and be like, okay, what do I do to review documents? You'd be like, 85% of what you need to know is in the task. You go and attempt it, and then we'll fine tune it, right? It dramatically reduces your training for a team member. And so we've already thought all this stuff out for you in our workflows, as you can see here. So this is an example of that task. So this gets assigned out to whomever that person is on your team. There's several other ways in TaxDome that we can assign out work to make sure it goes to the right person. But the power of this is that you're not waiting, you're not tracking, you're not following up to see where a client is at before picking up the folder to get to work. You come into work on a Tuesday, you see that Jim and Sally have gotten their documents to us. We're ready to take a look at those puppies so we can determine, are they missing something? Or if they're not, move them into prep so that they can get started in the preparation steps. All of this is the efficiency maker that allows you to increase capacity. All right, let me pull up my notes again here. You just saw my notes. You're lucky. The next thing I wanted to make sure that we talked about was how this allows for you to focus on the high impact work that your clients are paying you for. So many people are spending time meeting with their clients to do return reviews. They're spending so much time getting on the phone to make sure that they scheduled their appointment. They're spending so much time following up on signatures, and so much energy goes into all these administrative manual tasks that are no longer necessary. Now, I'm not saying those things are going to go away, but when we have a tool like TaxDome and we're utilizing automated pipelines, the beauty of that is that our jobs, these individual jobs, are now organized for us, and we now are able to see exactly where a client is at. So when I come to work, I can go straight to my highest priority. Maybe in the beginning of tax season, it's reviewing these documents and making sure that everybody's getting through missing documents and follow-ups if we have to have them, so that we can get them into the drafting of the return. And maybe towards the end of tax season, it's more critical that we make sure that every day we're e-filing our returns as the priority to make sure that we're getting those through, or we're making, and once those are done, we make sure we go and send our 8879s. But the beauty of a pipeline like this is it cues you up to know exactly where you need to be working based on the time in your tax season. And those are the pieces that allow you to be focusing on the work that actually matters, which is preparing a complete return. Gathering documents used to be a pain in the butt for you, but it's not anymore, because now you have an organizer that is like an interview, where if a client says, yes, this pertains to me, you can say, great, now tell me this. Okay, for example, let me show you my organizer here. So let's say due diligence, right? Like, you have certain things you have to do with due diligence. What we have done is we've built an organizer that asks the client, do you or your spouse have any dependents that you could claim on a return, right? If it's yes, great. We're going to have you tell us more about that. Same thing with like sources of income. Tell us if these things apply to you. Do these deductions apply to you? We're able to ask questions and then probe further if we need to, because some of these we may need to make sure that you have provided us the details of, for example, I had a nanny, and okay, if you had a nanny, did you do payroll for this nanny? If it was more than this amount of money, maybe we need to have an extra conversation and we'll reach out to you. But these are the details that you can't get from the organizer of your standard prep software, not to mention that's clunky as heck trying to get those out to all your clients. But this is going to tell you about their actual tax year. So this is where efficiency comes, when you're not having to do the back and forth with clients, because we've already asked the questions that matter. We've already gathered the documents that we need. And if somebody failed to deliver us something, it's just a mere follow-up, because we know that thing applies to them. So it's a huge benefit to you as a practice in being able to go back and focus specifically on the service delivery, not so much on the back and forth, the manual, the following up, the reminders, all of that. So the next thing I want to talk about is a flexible practice that works for you, because a lot of people come to us, and I just had a phone call today with a gal who's been using TaxDome for a couple of years, and she has not used it to its full capacity. It's kind of just her document management system, honestly. And she was like, I need to make a change. She's 55. She's like, I still have 10, maybe 15 years of work ahead of me. And I want to get efficient so that I and my very small team of two part-time bookkeepers that she has that are also at retirement age, she's looking forward, and she's like, I know I need to get this dialed in so that I can have more capacity, work more efficiently, so that if one of them comes to me and says, hey, I'm going to retire, it's not all on me to pick up my work plus more, right? So she's looking at it as gaining efficiencies through automation so that she can have more capacity in her day-to-day. And I think that's an important thing for a lot of us to think about. Stop share. There we go. A lot of us to think about as business owners. We need to put on that CEO hat sometimes and think, what is best for my business? Is it going to be painful? Possibly. But does this thing that's best for my business allow me to work smarter, to have more capacity, to have more flexibility? If you are somebody who is in the thinking about wanting to sell your business someday, you're going to have to have something technologically based. And that is going to, one, give you great efficiency in the first couple years that you implement it. You're going to see returns like what Edwin saw, where he was serving the same number of clients, but all of a sudden he was working less so he could bring on more team or clients, and he increased his revenue without having to hire, right? The other thing that this does is it gives you flexibility of location. So we have a client, Betty, who she came to us because her husband was retiring. First time he retired. I think he's gone back to work because he just couldn't do it. But she wanted to have flexibility to be able to go off to the lake and be able to travel with him and not feel like she had to be tied to her brick and mortar office where her clients had always delivered the documents and all the documents lived. The other thing I want you to think about is the value that having technology brings for when you want to sell, right? You having that money, or excuse me, that investment into the technology and having your clients make the transition now will make your client base, your client book or book of business more valuable in the future to a younger person who wants to have clients that are already accustomed to an online portal, that they're already accustomed to working with someone virtually to some degree. Doesn't mean you can't still meet with some of your clients and you can't still have one-on-ones if that's something you love doing, but it gives you the flexibility to be like, I'm in a season of health issues. I can't be meeting with my clients, right? I'm in a season where I need to pull back a bit. Unforeseen things happen. And if we have the technology to be able to manage that going forward, that makes a huge difference. So I wanted to share these things with you today. It was kind of a smorgasbord of thoughts, but I wanted you to see the value of having technology, how technology can act as if it is your new hire for you so that you can increase your revenue, increase your capacity without having to hire an actual human team member that could take 3 to 6 months to onboard into your world, to onboard into your processes. Why not take all of that energy and put it into a tool that's going to serve you for not 1 year, not 2 years, but for the remainder of your business life. And it's going to make sure that your clients are always cared for very well, that you and your team always are organized, that everything is in one place, and that you're able to, sorry, my camera's all wigged out. You're able to have everything at your fingertips when you need it, allowing you to be a better service provider, allowing you to step into that role of professional, allowing your clients to see you as the professional. And that just increases your value with your clients tenfold, right? It's huge. It's huge. And I think that a lot of people aren't thinking about it that way. So I wanted to bring that perspective to you today. I would love for you to check out TaxDome if you haven't yet. And I'm going to put below the link here. We do have a bonus or partner link that is an exclusive partner link that will get you 3 free months of TaxDome if you have not yet checked TaxDome out. So I would invite you to follow the link, go to their website and book a demo. Sign up for their 2-week free trial and check it out, because this is really the tool that is transforming small practices. And with Workflows for Tax Pros, we can help you make the onboarding a long weekend, if even that, 2 business days typically. We can have you up and running if you can commit that time. But if you have a bit more time, 10 to 12 hours is what we expect most people to take to get their TaxDome set up. And that is about 10% of what it took my partner Jessica to set up. So check us out at Workflows for Tax Pros. We're here to make sure that you going into this next tax season, you are successful, that you are working less, you have less stress, everything is organized, your clients are loving it, you're loving it. That is our goal and our aim at Workflows for Tax Pros, but it's really about making sure that the operational use of TaxDome is happening for you. And that is something that nobody else in the industry is able to bring for the small practice. So check us out. And if you have questions, feel free to comment below this video. We would love to get back to you, answer them for you, as we have become the go-tos for small practice strategy and operations when it comes to automation. All right, I wish you a beautiful day. And if you wanted to send me a DM, feel free to do that. Otherwise, I will see you in our next training. Cheers.